It feels like it's really new, but it's actually been a while. It's been almost 5 years since we've seen an Arkham game in really any form. We haven't even seen like a handheld or like a mobile or anything. I mean, like, and the only reason I bring that up is Arkham Origins Blackgate, was a thing. It kind of opened the door on like these side games of if we were going to see more of these.
It wasn't very good, from what I understand, because I know that my brother got it on the Vita, and it was not a good time. But yeah,
but it existed.
It did, yeah.
And lately, that's more than you can say about the Arkham series. Really, it exists as a point of speculation, let's plays of existing games, like we're doing over. Check out our Arkham City Let's Play over on the channel.
Shameless plug.
Yep, and that's where it's at. But Arkham Knight, there had been reports for a long time about a sequel to Arkham Knight. This is separate, might I add, from the report we did last week about the Arkham Origins sequel.
Yeah.
This is also from WB Games Montreal, but it went back and forth on being rumored if it was from WB Games or if it was from Rocksteady. There was this rumor about an Arkham Knight sequel starring Damian Wayne. That's kind of where it ended. This was a long time ago. We had thought this was fake. However, there's a lot of new stuff that's come to light on it. Recently, new concept art has been leaked that is related to this supposed game. And we're going to run through the concept art in just a minute. But first I want to touch on a couple of keynotes from this canceled game. This was posted on 4chan, and a user shared this look at Arkham. And it looks like an Arkham basically of the future. And some of this information is from Screen Rant. Some of it's from We Got This Covered, which is not the most accurate source ever usually. So I wanted to go to multiple. And some of it is also from other game sites like Games Radar, I believe. Games Radar. So one thing we can see here is that there's kind of this destroyed looking Arkham City in some of these pictures. It's more dystopian looking. You can see the Wayne Enterprise Tower is like wrecked. It's just smashed. This makes sense a little bit following the end of Night, which, spoiler warning for Night, I'm going to give it to you right now. So spoiler warning for the ending of Night. We know that there's going to be some fallout from the public learning who Batman was under the mask. It is exposed at the end of Arkham Knight that it is Bruce Wayne being the Batman. However, in the Nightfall ending of Arkham Knight, there's implications, and you can kind of take this your own way. Like, you and I have different interpretations of this. My interpretation of it is that there is a new Batman, which I thought was Azrael, because there's a pretty in-depth side story of kind of preparing Azrael to take up the mantle, and also the fact that it was called the Nightfall ending, which Nightfall, if you don't know in the comics, is when Batman's back is broken by Bane, and Azrael came in to take over for Batman. But this is Arkham. They can always do their own version of whatever they want, and they have done that several times while staying true to the comics mythos. So, in that ending, we saw a new Batman or a different version of the same Batman, we don't know. And it stood to reason that they could go forward in some direction, but they might just be dropping it. That's where all these Damian Wayne rumors came in. There was these rumors of the game where Damian Wayne is Batman. It's a Batman Beyond type concept, except there's no Terry McGinnis. It's Damian, the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, who, again, spoilers for Arkham City, dies in Arkham City. However, there's also a side little hidden thing in Arkham Knight where the morgue that's supposed to have her body, it's open and there's no body in it. And the Al Ghuls are infamous for coming back to life using the Lazarus Pits. That's also how in the main comics they had brought Jason Todd back to life. So we know that there's, potential there. So the idea of this rumor is that either in secret or following Night, that Damian Wayne was raised, likely as an Al Ghul, and then eventually somehow became the new Batman. This game would have featured an old Bruce Wayne. There was also rumors of WB Montreal being linked to this Destiny-inspired Suicide Squad game from before, and an Arkham Knight or Arkham Origins, it's conflicting reports, sequel based on the Court of Owls, which we don't really know if this is either of those, but it really seems like this was a thing, because there was also some tweets way back when from Jason Schreier, and he's a very famous or infamous, depending on how you view him, video game reporter, writes a lot for Kotaku, who has leaked a lot of information in the past because he has good connections to different companies and people within companies, and he has a good reputation for being a reputable news source. That doesn't mean everything he says always comes true, because the thing we know about video games is they get canned. And that's something that supposedly happened here. Because back in 2017, in response to a tweet, Jason Schreier had said that I wouldn't get your hopes up too much for a new Batman game from WB Montreal because last he heard it was rebooted. That was in 2017. Another tweet from him actually was, I believe, the same year. Or no, this was actually way later. This was in response to a Arkham Crisis leak, which was like supposedly the new Batman game. And he had said that that was total nonsense, but he didn't know what the name of the next WB game was, and that video game leaks made up of big lists of ultra hype bullet points are almost always fake. Reality's never that cool, which is something you and I have kind of said in the past on these, different games. So that is where we had left this. This game was way back when, supposedly rebooted. We didn't know if it was coming out or not. It was in limbo. Now, to 4chan, these images had been leaked that are supposed concept art from the canceled Arkham Knight sequel. So, that's kind of where we're at. I want to run through these images with you, but I wanted to give the background on that because it is really complicated, don't you think?
Yeah, a lot of information there.
There's way too much to this, and part of it is just, I don't want to say us, specifically, but people like us that are hungry for a new Batman or DC property who kind of jump on hey, maybe this is a thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, talking about what could be the next thing. I think in some ways it encourages developers to show that there is an interest in the market, as long as you're not a whiny jerk about it when it doesn't happen. So we didn't get this game, I'm not going to go dox Sefton Hill. But am I disappointed? Yeah, I'm disappointed. I think that's totally fair. And I think it's fair that that's kind of the sentiment. But there's some weird things about this too that I want to show you. So some of the designs are really cool. Because the first one I have here is of Gorilla Grodd. There's not a lot to him. Gorilla Grodd's never been our favorite person, either of us. This project, the reason it says Project Sabbath in the corner is that supposedly the code name it was going by during development before it got an Arkham title. So we see Gorilla Grodd. He has kind of longer, scruffier hair on his head, but just trimmed on the rest of his body. He looks like an ape. He has a bulletproofish vest. This reminds me a lot of the Origins look, that vest type thing a lot of enemies would wear. So it is kind of inspired by WB Games Montreal, but it doesn't look out of place with Knight really either. But you see he has it looks like he has electric knuckles of some kind on his one hand. He's having a little drink. For YouTube monetization's sake, in case we ever get our monetization stuff back, I'm going to assume that's apple juice that he's drinking. That is
cider, for sure.
Apple cider. He looks cool. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think I like it. I don't know how... I mean, the interesting thing with that is they did mention in the previous Arkham games Keystone, and they did mention Metropolis and stuff like that. So they have established that is a part of their universe. So it's cool that they were thinking about bringing him in, and this was a part of the project. Like you said, I'm not a huge Grodd guy. I think he's fine. But it doesn't move the needle a whole lot for me personally. So,
no, you're not missing Gorilla Grodd.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's a cool art style, and I like the way that he looks. But like I said, and I guess thoughts on the game generally before we move on to the next image. For me, we've talked about it too a little bit before the video, before we started recording, is Damian Wayne. Honestly, I don't think he's that interesting either. For me, if this was Terry McGinnis, I think that would have been unbelievable, and I'd be way more disappointed that it got canceled.
Yeah, and also, just to go into that, if you think that the connection of Damian Wayne being Bruce Wayne's son is the most interesting part about him, it kind of is. Everything, in my opinion, in the comics so far, the most interesting parts of Damian are the parts of him learning to be like Bruce. Who he is as a person, as being, an assassin and having worked with the Al Ghuls for a long time and really respecting Ra's al Ghul, his grandfather, somewhat interesting, but not really. It didn't really add any depth to the universe for me ever. I don't hate Damian Wayne. I just think he's not that interesting of a character. And But this is, the WB Games Rocksteady universe. Like, if anyone could make it interesting, it would be one of these companies. Like, they both do a good job of characterization. I just don't know how far you can go with that. Would it just be he's basically Terry McGinnis, but his name is Damian Wayne? Like, how far do you have to push to make him likable and a really good character, especially since we haven't seen him?
That's a great point, because Rocksteady is very capable of making a character that, like Damian Wayne, who I just don't really care about, they could make him a very interesting main character. I'm sure they could.
But if it's WB Games, could they? Because I really like Arkham Origins, but they had the backbone of the Arkham mythos to lay on. And I think that really benefited them. Like, their characters in Arkham Origins are not quite as complex, but we can justify that by the timeline, right? We can justify that by Batman is brutal. He is savage. Like, he's done this for a year. His point is to put the fear of God in these people, like, and make them think that he's, like, merciless. Like, that is his point at that point of his career.
Oh, yeah.
So it stands that he's, like, a brute and simple, and Joker's not developed yet. But we couldn't do that after Knight, is what I'm saying.
No, and they wrote, like, for example, Bane was great in that game as compared to the Rocksteady version, where he was just kind of a mindless brute, like you said. So, I think that WB Games would have been very capable of writing a good Damian too. I'm just saying, for me personally, if it was Terry McGinnis and they brought in Will Friedle, who was the Batman Beyond voice actor from the show, and then they used and they kind of brought back that dynamic with old Kevin Conroy, and just kind of played with that, I think that would have made me quite a bit more disappointed about this, about the news. But I also think that the way that the concept art looks and the way that they, everything that was designed, the way that they talk about it, it still sounds like it could have been really well done and would have been really fun still. So, it's not to say that I obviously would have bought it and played it and probably would have loved it, to be honest, just because it's Batman. But Damian Wayne, just to wrap that up, is not my favorite. So.
No, me neither. And I do think that's important to touch on for sure, because he's a weird character, and there have been different characterizations of him, but a lot of them come back to he's the jerk Robin.
Yeah.
Like, in the way that Jason Todd, as much as I like him, was the whiny douchebag Robin, and he becomes much better after being Red Hood, Damian was kind of the jerk Robin, who never really doesn't become a jerk, he just becomes less of one. So it's more like he becomes less unlikable over time, to me. But again, they could have maybe done this and done it really well. I don't know. There's a lot of weird concepts here, too. One I wanted to show you was the female Black Mask.
That's crazy, man.
I don't know who this would be, do you? Because there are titles in the corner of these, and this is titled Black Mask. It's not just like a thug. This is who would be the new Black Mask. Does Sionis have a daughter in Arkham?
I don't know, because I don't remember hearing about that at all, and it's fascinating, because she is horrifying.
But she's also kind of hot.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, dude.
I don't know. Like, I'm just hoping there's something good in that syringe.
Yeah, dude.
Like apple juice, you two. Like apple juice.
Yeah, you're trying to get stuck with some apple juice right now.
That's
I can tell,
very true.
Dude.
Well, and we can tell that this is not just a sit behind the counter, do nothing. And Sionis wasn't either.
No.
Black Mask in this version was not either. He's been portrayed both ways in the comics as like a mastermind who doesn't really do anything. In Arkham, he was sort of a behind-the-scenes mastermind, but he would also go out and get his hands dirty.
He was active as well, yeah.
And you can kind of see, I'm stipulating and, like, I'm working with what we have here to, like, make these connections. From things like the Bloody Hammer, it doesn't seem like this is a Black Mask who would just sit there and do nothing. These are instruments of violence or torture. She has something in a syringe and a bleeding hammer, like, dripping to the floor. So, like, we know that there would be some kind of violence associated with this character. It's not just someone that we would see in passing sitting behind a desk and they'd be gone.
Right.
She looks really cool. I actually really like her design. I can't tell if the mask is actually attached to her face or if it just goes... It looks like it goes around the back of her head.
Yeah, it looks like a bit of a strap there.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this would have been an actual defaced Black Mask or if she was just a character who took over for Sionis at some point to run his group.
Right,
his gang. I don't really know. Again, a lot of this is just us having to make connections based on what we can see.
Definitely.
Another one, too, is the White Rabbit. This is such a weird design.
Oh,
because
my God.
we can see the White Rabbit's really old in this. So something that you need to know, and it's one of the reasons I had up the borderline hentai earlier the White Rabbit.
Very edgy stuff.
White Rabbit, who is typically Jaina Hudson, she is a supervillain in the DC universe. A lot of times she's used as sex appeal, like, honestly. She has connections to Bruce Wayne. In some ways, she kind of falls into the Catwoman role in certain depictions, like ways where she's met Bruce Wayne and like it seems like there's chemistry there, and then it doesn't happen, but it turns out she's actually the White Rabbit, who's a supervillain. There are some connections there to Bruce Wayne, but obviously, the sex appeal works when you're young. It doesn't work when you're 60 or 70.
Yeah, things change,
so
dude.
she kind of has like the same-ish outfit looking, but she looks like she's on some sort of oxygen or some sort of gas now. I don't know if if they would have had her have a connection to the Mad Hatter from previous Arkham games or not. However, this is a little bit one of the problems with this concept, is like it could be done really well, but they did introduce a lot of characters in this concept art we had never seen. It would be one thing if we had seen White Rabbit during Arkham Origins, right? And she was really young, and she was this, like, I don't want to say, like, sexual character, but in a way she was that sort of thing.
Or even, like, an Easter egg. Because, like, they planted the seed with, like, Prometheus and stuff, where, like, there was characters that we never saw that were mentioned.
And we still never see it.
And we never saw him.
He's not even in this concept art, by the way. So just to give you a little shout out there,
that's
which
great.
Annoyed me. But my point is, like, because we never saw her before, it's not you couldn't build a history, it's just it's harder to, I think. And she's a weird character, but like that's about all there is to it, because we don't have any connection to this from previous Arkham games at all.
And to just skip to the old one is weird.
Yeah, especially when the young one is the one that everyone knows.
Right.
It's just an odd decision. I would have assumed that she would have been just kind of there, like as like a side thing, kind of like Mad Hatter. But I don't know. Another is a younger Poison Ivy, which with spoilers, obviously, for Arkham Knight again, we know that it very likely would not be Pamela.
Right.
Because of what happens.
She looks like a big Billie Eilish fan.
She does, so she looks like me.
Okay.
She's kind of grunge emo looking. She has some sort of like gas coming out of these bags at her stomach. She has like this Arkham padding look that we saw again in Origins. Like there's a lot of people with like shoulder pads and like chest pads and stuff in Origins and like armor, and it's one of the things that made it cool, the aesthetic of it. But she has that on her shoulders. She has kind of an open trench coat that like sort of goes into like a dress, like, or a skirt. She's interesting looking, but she's not your typical Poison Ivy. I don't really know who this would have been. I don't know if it would have been Pamela's daughter. I don't know if it would have been an art character taking up the mantle of Poison Ivy at some point. It seems like or it could even be Poison Ivy like regrown. Because one of the things in the comics that was eventually revealed is that Poison Ivy, after merging with what's known as like the Green, which is connected often to Swamp Thing, was able to sort of like resurrect herself through plant life. So I don't know what direction they would have gone to create a new Poison Ivy. It's interesting to think about, but one thing I'm seeing is this game seems a little bit reliant or like pushing towards like legacy characters, which are like characters taking up the mantle of a previous character. So you have Damian Wayne, he becomes the new Batman. You have whoever this is becomes the new Poison Ivy, whether it's Pam reborn or it's a new character. You have a woman who's Black Mask, and it's clearly not just Black Mask got a sex change because she's very young. So it seems like there's a lot of push towards bringing these people in to take up the mantles of previous Gotham criminals and heroes.
Well, and the weird thing, I shouldn't say the weird thing, because it's cool that they were aiming to take a risk and go with these different characters, these different interpretations that like really no one's seen. But at the same time, I guess I could kind of see why it got canceled in that way. Just maybe out of fear of the studio not really making as much money as they would have.
Yeah, because there's not a connection to that history of these people.
And they're taking a risk, and sure, I mean, you could have like great reviews. It could be just a great game. You create these new characters that are fantastic, and that are just, I mean, you have to create new characters at some point and take risks at some point. That's how Harley Quinn was made, stuff like that. But at the same time, when you've got like the whole lineup essentially is just weird, new interpretations
or
on
characters we've never seen, too.
Yeah, it's I could see why the game didn't end up getting all the way through to just fruition.
Yeah,
I guess,
there's certainly a possibility that that's one of the reasons why it didn't happen. Is this fear of what these characters are, because like there's also elements from Bane in the character design of Poison Ivy. You can see because she's holding a activation switch that is somehow tied to like either these bombs or these green leaking cylinders on her stomach. So like they do use like old design bits, but like these characters are so different. Like you said, it's like they have a weird familiar aesthetic feel, but they're not the people we know. And because of that, if I was taking this to you and you're a production company and my whole previous games were based on, pre-established concepts, and I said, I'm going to create all these new things, you'd be like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Settle down there, buddy.
Well, that's the thing is because we have all these established characters from the previous games, and like if they would have, like say, slowly introduced these characters, let's say like, I guess just plant the seed that maybe Pam Isley has a daughter, or like maybe White Rabbit makes a small appearance or is like talked about in some way, then this wouldn't be so weird,
Yeah.
But like you said, there's no mention of Black Mask having a daughter, or Gorilla Grodd. Really, all you can maybe say that he's mentioned in some way is Keystone is mentioned once in Arkham City that I can remember.
And I don't know if White Rabbit is mentioned or not.
I don't
ever
think so.
If she was, it was in a City or Night story.
That we didn't see,
and that would have been about it. But there are some characters that we did see before that were possibly being used as well. This is Dick Grayson.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is weird because he's not in his Nightwing attire. I don't even know if he is Nightwing anymore or not because of that. It's odd to me that they went the route of making a Dick Grayson concept art, but he's not in his Nightwing stuff. I don't know if there are comics where it's like Dick Grayson isn't a superhero anymore. He's like an agent of Spiral, which is like a government organization. They could have maybe gone a direction like that, but I feel like it would have been out of character for this version of Dick Grayson because it would have been out of nowhere. So that's possible. Or it's possible that he was going to be Nightwing anyway, and the Dick Grayson one got finished and leaked, and the Nightwing concept art didn't. That's possible too. Because there were rumors before that this would involve different characters who had been Robin before as well, not just Damian Wayne. I just don't know in what form. Because, like I said, a lot of this is rumors and speculation and connecting stuff based on information we have, things Jason Schreier said, things that have been, leaked and shown, and then just internet gossip.
Yeah.
That's the problem with this whole thing. Is like, I think it's really interesting. It's just we have so little concrete stuff.
Right. And we have to kind of go off of just what we have,
Yeah.
and in speculation, this is also just kind of a weird one again, like it's, like you said, this stuff could be very interesting and it could be very cool. And they maybe make a really weird, almost indie Batman game that's awesome, but it's just kind of weird to see all the concept art. I mean, we don't have obviously a ton, but of the 6 or 7 images that we have, it's just bizarre to see the character designs and to see the random characters that we are unfamiliar with really in the Arkhamverse. Once again, kind of weird, you know?
I think so too. One of the ones that actually is really true and on brand for who he was Two-Face.
This one's sick.
There's nothing really, I mean, there is new stuff to him. I mean, obviously he's older, you can even see it in the lines of his face, but he's not, it doesn't seem like it's not Harvey.
No, he looks honestly really cool.
Yeah.
I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, his design's awesome. Like, he's got, the fancy shoes. He's got the 2 different color pants and undersuit. I don't know what you call that. It's not a suit jacket. It's like a suit vest. And he's got the tie that's 2 different colors as well under there. He's flipping a coin. He's got his hand in his pocket with what can I assume is a Rolex watch or something like that because he's a baller. And he's got like this overcoat, which makes me wonder if this is somehow connected to winter again. at all.
Maybe. Or he's just going for like a weird like 90s pimp vibe.
Yeah, and he's just going to be really hot.
Yeah, that could be, dude.
Yeah, it's very possible. We don't really know.
I fully support it.
It is weird because it is this like fur look for his coat or jacket on the outside. And he's wearing a sort of like a cape, which is a really neat way. It's a really neat interpretation of Two-Face, like aesthetically and physically. Sadly, we don't really know how he would have been in game, because we can't see any of that. But just looking at him, we can tell he looks really cool.
He looks like a legit mob boss there, like just a guy, like a very powerful dude, which is cool. I think, like you said, it's said that we miss this at least, because I think that has potential to be really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential in the Gotham underworld and how it developed over time without Bruce Wayne around, especially if there was a gap in between the Nightfall protocol and the Season of Infamy, that part of the timeline, and when Damian Wayne took up the mantle. Even if there's like a 5-year gap in there, that's a lot of time for like criminals to get out of jail or break out or like do their own thing with or without the Joker.
I was gonna say no Joker either, so like that's a huge gap for them to fill in.
There's a massive criminal underworld gap with like I just want to recap 2 things here too. Like with spoilers again for Arkham City and Arkham Knight, we know Joker's dead. Mainly, physically he's dead.
Right.
And we also know that Black Mask is dead. Jason kills him. So, like, there's already like 2 big gaping voids in the Gotham underworld right there, basically at the beginning of Night.
Oh, yeah, and even at the end.
Yeah.
You lose, another spoiler alert, you lose Poison Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
That's another huge gap right there. Other people I feel like are, like, Mr. Freeze, gone, after Season of Infamy.
Well, and we know Bane leaves.
Right.
We don't know if he ever comes back or not. But it seemed like he was kind of hanging it up. Like, Bane was, like, going to do something else. Like, he wasn't really interested in being a villain.
No. So, like you said, there's this huge gap for guys like Two-Face, maybe Penguin. I guess Scarecrow could come back, technically. Like, there's stuff like that. Yeah,
because he's not dead.
He's not dead.
Well, I mean, he got shot. But I don't think he died.
No,
he
I think,
lived.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because they put him in, like, the security place in the GCPD. So, yeah, I mean, there's a huge gap there. So would have been cool to see what he would have done.
And finally, the last piece of art that I have is another one of the city, sort of. This one's kind of hard for you to see, so I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. So sorry about the low image quality for you. But we can see what is the Bat Bike or the Bat Pod here with a character that looks like Batman. That's our understanding of it from what we've seen. He's going underneath an overpass that says the end is here. Obviously, there's still electricity. So this is not like a destroyed city, but
we're not in Last of Us territory.
No, but it has seen way better times. Like you can see that there's very possibly still the rich living in luxury. Like you have the towers still look very nice.
Right, the Gotham News. Yeah.
Other than the Wayne Tower that we saw before, which looked like crap.
That's a good point.
But again, that stands to reason that would have been sacked to hell after the reveal of Bruce Wayne being Batman and him supposedly leaving or at least going into Bruce Wayne exile. Like I really doubt Bruce Wayne would be walking around like that, like RDJ's Iron Man, like, yeah, I am Batman. Right. What's up? Because it ruins like what is essentially the legacy of Batman, or like the concept of it that he's like a character based on fear. And that works in something like Injustice, right? Where he's leading like a revolution. Like that works, that he can sort of step into this more Superman-y role of being in the daylight. That doesn't really work in the Arkham Gotham.
No, it doesn't work there at all. I think it doesn't fit Batman's character at all either, for that it wouldn't make sense. Like it really, the only time it makes sense is at the end of Arkham when you're finding or you're doing the side missions, and it's like, oh, Bruce Wayne, and then you're like just fighting the random side mission guys. It's your last night, so you basically clean up the rest of Gotham, then you leave forever.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's about the only context I could see it, because he's, like you said, he's not an Iron Man guy.
No.
His character is built off of a little bit of fear and like the idea of him. So, not to get too Christopher Nolan on it, but like
no, but that actually is true.
Yes. So I think it wouldn't have worked that way.
Yeah, and I think that it is worth noting that again, like all of this stuff needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but the fact that this matches up so much, because it doesn't look like just something someone threw together on DeviantArt. So the fact that it matches up so much with the concept art that we've seen from previous Arkham games, the fact that it matches up with reports from both Jason Schreier and a lot of other news outlets over the years, the fact that this game had at some point been rebooted, at least according to Schreier, it leads me to believe this, and this is my own take on this, okay, is that this was a game. This is not going to be a game anymore. And that whatever they are working on now is some sort of DC property that was being built from the ruins of what this was going to be. I don't know if it's going to be Batman, but I would assume that they're taking that engine, or at least some of that work, and putting it in as a skeleton to whatever they're making now. Because these were both about WB Games Montreal. So it stands to reason that they wouldn't just throw everything out the door. But I don't really know if they're now working on our Batman game, or if this was sort of the last vestige of like hope for another Arkham game in the near future, and that got canned, so they said, okay, fine, we'll make something else for DC. We just don't know. I hope that they make some sort of sequel to Origins, at least. This would have been awesome, but I think because this was canceled, we will not see a sequel to Knight from WB Games Montreal. I don't think.
Well, it's important to note that they spend a lot of money to even get to that point.
Yeah,
so that's just a complete net loss. So I mean, to reboot it, and they'd really need to get a firm foundation, I think, and really need to feel good about where they're going with it in order to fully go through. And I really hope that what they're working on right now is a Batman game. But I'd also be fine if they went in another direction and tried something else in the DC universe. It wouldn't bother me, I guess. But also, the Batman fan in me is really craving another Batman game.
Yeah, same.
This kind of sucks, man.
Same. It's been almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just want to see more of that universe. I love it. And like, it seemed like it got more open of an experience and more, in a way, choice-based as far as, further along you went in the series of, how do you want to tackle this situation? And yeah, there was stuff like, this is our narrative, you don't have a choice in this. That's fine, because their narrative was damn good. If it wasn't that good, that would be annoying. But it's one of the few games where their stories are so good that you don't care if you change the story really or not. And even in that way with Knight, they introduced little things, especially with Azrael, where you did have a little control over that. And it seemed like it was opening up more. There was also possible rumors, I mean, there are rumors, of a game that possibly included the Nemesis system from Shadow of War. I just think that's worth throwing on here because no one really is talking about that. But we don't really know if that's this game or whatever they're working on now, or if that was never going to happen. But
see,
there was
gets
potential
me hyped,
there.
man.
There was potential there.
To think about Gotham with a Nemesis system is crazy.
Yeah, and you have different gangs or something, and these characters are building up their gangs or their groups.
Yeah,
in Gotham.
Two-Face, Penguin. You could even maybe have Red Hood in there that you're fighting against.
And you could have your own. You could have your own nemesises that are computer generated. Characters I don't know, some guy, right? How you have an orc. And it'll give him a name, and it'll give him an ability and stuff like that. You could have a nemesis system with that where it's not just the supervillains, too. You could have the supervillains involved. Maybe they're the generals, but maybe you have underneath them the lieutenants are just these guys. And these guys are randomly generated and different in your game than mine.
And you have to work your way up to get to the supervillains.
Yeah. As long as they were able to incorporate the same level of really good narrative in that while also branching out, that would have given more player control to the game, which is almost always a good thing as long as it's done well. If you can't do good player control, it's better to just not do it. But if anyone could have, these guys are Rocksteady. Really could have. They have one of the most intuitive combat designs and world traveling systems in all of these games out of probably anything. The only system I can think of getting around a city that's as good as these is Spider-Man. Marvel Spider-Man, I would say, is as good as the Arkham Knight version of traveling around.
Which is crazy to think we might get another Marvel Spider-Man before we get another Batman game.
We probably will.
You know what I mean? That's a crazy concept. So I agree that Nemesis system is a crazy concept to think that maybe would have been in a Batman game. And
it still could. We don't know.
Still could.
But there's just not really a lot of concrete evidence of anything happening now other than this report we did on the tweet about working on a DC project, and we don't know what that is. I want to point out because a commenter had said, like, well, maybe it's Injustice, and that's a totally fair assumption. It can't be Injustice. And the reason for that is because even though it's published with the characters, and WB Games is a publisher on it, NetherRealm is the ones making that. It's never been WB Games Montreal. They would not just give their fighting game to WB Games Montreal. So we know it's not that. I think it's a fair question to ask of if it could be. I think that could be the next DC licensed Warner Brothers published game that we see, or one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another Lego game soon too, like with how successful those are.
Yeah, they do very well. Yeah.
But we don't think it's that. So it kind of comes down to what is it, and really we don't know. It could be the sequel to Arkham Origins that's based on the Court of Owls. It could be not Batman. All the reports now are aiming that it's not Superman. So it's probably not that. We're at a point where we don't know. And like until more information comes out, like if more information comes out or whatever, even more concept art, I'd love to talk about it more. But right now we don't have anything more on it. It's
kind
just what we want to see.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to make a video like what we want to see in a game, but this isn't really the place for that because this is what we got and we know what we want, but we also now know what we're not going to get. So that sucks, but it is what it is. And maybe
where we're at, yeah.
Maybe someone knows more than us and maybe it was canceled for a reason. Like maybe it wasn't up to par. We don't know. It could be a case of it's better that it didn't come out. But as someone who hasn't played an Arkham game, like a new Arkham game released now in almost 5 years, and I'm sitting over here scratching my addiction arm, it doesn't feel like a good place to be, really.
No, it is sad that we haven't got one in a while. But I mean, we've just kind of hit a standstill with information too. Like stuff just isn't really flying out. It hasn't been really for I guess 5 years. We get random tidbits here and there, so I mean it's really cool to get stuff like this where you get like concept art of like a potential game that was in the works, because it's just nice to have a little bit of steam going at some point, because they're my favorite games ever. I love those games, so yeah. I would just love to get more information, but we just don't have it right now. So it's really, like you said, it's a waiting game, and we'll just have to wait and see for more stuff to come out.
And we really could, like, just as a closing thought, if they ever do that sequel to Origins, we could actually see something that plants the seeds for a future timeline eventually. We could see, now that this supposedly is not going to happen, if they did a sequel to Origins, maybe they plant seeds of Terry McGinnis existing. Maybe they plant seeds of Damian Wayne existing, or the White Rabbit, or whoever. And maybe down the line, in 5 or 10 years, they do a game that's out past where Arkham Knight stopped. We don't know. They could certainly do that. I think that Terry McGinnis direction for a Beyond is more what you and I would want to see, but we just don't know what they'll do. And we hope that it'll continue, but who knows? That's really where it's at. Sure. Who knows? Yeah. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed this full breakdown. It was originally going to be much shorter, but there's a lot to talk about here and dive into, and we hope that we provided some insight based on compiling all this information together that at least gave you something entertaining to think about. What do you want to see in an Arkham sequel? Do you want to see something after Origins, after Night? Do you want to see something set between any of the games? Let us know in the comments below. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. It helps us out. Subscribe to the channel for more updates, and we'll see you in the future of Gotham.